Welcome back to another episode of The Real Deal. And today, my friends, is a solemn occasion. It is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It is the day set aside once a year to remember the people that were murdered in the Great Holocaust that Nazi Germany and others did between 1933 and 1945. And a lot of people don't know, to this day, they don't know history. They don't know what really happened. They believe all the lies on social media. They believe the Facebook post. They'll look at Wikipedia, as you know I call it Fakepedia, and they'll believe everything that's there. Now, let me tell you, Wikipedia is written by people like us. I will give them credit, and most of the time when they talk about a person or an event, they'll get the dates right. They talk about a person, they'll get their spouses right, the kids' names right, when and where they were born, what college they went to. But depending on who is writing it, it will be largely embellished and exaggerated. And that's exactly what they do with the Holocaust. That's exactly what most people do with the Holocaust. They hear a little rumor and they believe it. And they'll repeat it and they'll post it on Facebook. And they only do this because there's hatred in their hearts towards a group of people. And the group of people I am talking mainly about, the ones that were destroyed the most, murdered, annihilated, disgusting to even think about it, was the 6 million plus Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. Now, Holocaust is a Greek word. It means destruction. And in Hebrew, the word for destruction is Shoah. And that's what most Jews call it, but everybody knows it as Holocaust, so Jews will also refer to it as that. Now, in 2005, the United Nations actually came up with this day, January 27th, in the Gregorian calendar as the Holocaust Remembrance Day. And the reason they did that is because it was on this day that the Soviet Union liberated Auschwitz. Now, they knew what was going on. The Soviets did, because they lost a lot of people in that war, more than every other country combined, because they were right there next to Hitler. Now, Hitler's biggest mistake in that war was he had an alliance with the Soviet Union in the beginning. Then he ruined it and went after them. He got a little cocky and arrogant. If he had stayed on their side, he would have all of Europe right now. But he went a little too far, and when they were defeated, it wasn't them that lost because of the Soviet military. It was because of the Russian winter. It was extremely harsh, and that messed them up more than anything. Many people will say Hitler's biggest mistake was declaring war on the United States of America. No, it wasn't. It was breaking his alliance with the Soviet Union, which I'm glad he did. And I think we all need to thank the Soviets, because they gave more than anybody, and they sacrificed more, and they protected more Jews than anybody. The United States knew what was going on, but the people that were there serving in the military didn't know. When they came upon concentration camps, as they were known, towards the end of the war, they thought they were military camps, so they're ready for action. They had no clue. That was the American soldiers. Now, their bosses, they knew. The people up at the top knew. FDR and all those boys in the military, they all knew, but they didn't care. They didn't care because this war meant money to them, because the economy was crap. FDR was ruining this country. He was ruining the United States. The economy was horrible. So what do? You start a war. That's what they did in the 60s. Oh, the economy's going to hell. Let's start a war. Let's go to Vietnam. country that has nothing to do with anything. But hey, let's get back to why I'm really here. The Holocaust Remembrance Day. There were over 6 million people killed. And I don't care, and those were Jews. Now, there was millions more from other people, but they combined of all different forces and regions, political prisoners. They hated the communists. If you were gay, if you were handicapped, they would experiment on people, just regular old people. If you were mentally challenged, they'd kill you. So there was a lot of people killed. But they didn't just come up to you because you were French. Now, if you were a French political person against them, yes. But if you were just a French guy walking down the street, no big deal. But if you were a Jew, they rounded you up. And even before the camps, they made you wear a star with Yuf or Yud or Magdan David on it to identify you. So what happened was, the Jews have been hated more than any other group of people throughout history. Judaism is an ethno-religion. It is an ethnicity, and it is a religion also. The ethnicity is passed on through the mother's bloodline. Just like if you're Arab or if you're Mexican, it's through the bloodline, you know? So Judaism has been around for a long time. It is the first monotheistic religion. They are in the year 5786. So, you know, according to their calendar, they've been around about 6,000 years, where others have not. They are the oldest monotheistic religion in the world, which means one God, where everybody else, and there's still groups that worship other gods, to each their own. But the Jews have always been persecuted. And the only reason anybody can really think of is because they killed Christ. That's what everybody says. Well, they killed Jesus. If you ask a Muslim guy and you're a Christian, and he knows it, if you ask him, why do you guys hate the Jews so much? He'll tell you, because they killed Jesus. That's what they do to get you on their side. And there's a lot of people that believe that. Now, Jewish law forbids, and most people don't know Jewish law because they never read the Torah or the Tanakh, or as you call it, the Old Testament. Most people have never read it, and what they've read has been so mistranslated. I mean, there's a reason they do that. It's propaganda to control your mind. Jesus, the Jesus of Christianity, was a Jew. Jews cannot sell out another Jew like that. It's not true, people. They also dislike Jews because no matter where the Jews go and get displaced, they always seem to do pretty good. They always seem to prosper. You give them a land that's all rocks. Next thing you know, the rocks are cleared and they're growing crops that are better than yours. Next thing you know, their horses are surviving. Their camels are doing better, no matter where they're at. They seem to do pretty good because of their perseverance. They work hard. They always have. And everybody has a game plan against them. And if you look around in the United States and other countries today, I've never seen anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish this bad. Never seen it like this in my lifetime. Growing up, every now and then you'd hear things here and there. People make some jokes or say some things. Most people don't even know a Jewish person. They don't. And they have no problem making Jewish jokes. But let me ask you something. When you say something about a Jew liking money so much, what do the Jews do? They laugh. They'll come back with something. They'll come back with their own joke, turning it all around. But let me ask you something. Would you ever say, like when you dog out a Jew and stereotype him for liking money or having a big nose or, you know, something like that, would you ever say anything like that to a black person? Would you stereotype them about watermelon and fried chicken? How about an Italian? Would you go after them like that? Talk about spaghetti? Or how about a Mexican? Would you talk about tacos and burritos to them? Or tell them they should wear a sombrero? No, you don't do that. And you know why people don't do that? Because it's racist and it's wrong. But when it comes to Jews, it seems to be okay. Seems to be okay. And in society, they've always been like that. it seems to be okay to hate Jews and be racist against them. That's okay. I don't agree with that. I think it's deplorable. But hey, that's mankind for you. So Adolf Hitler took over Germany and started the Nazi regime in 1933. And it ended in 1945. And he didn't kill himself, as people say. The Soviet Union said they had his skull. It turned out to be a woman's skull. It wasn't Eva Braun's skull. Hitler got away. Hitler got away with a lot of other Nazis. He made it to South America. A lot of Nazis did. Some got caught over there. Some didn't. So, I mean, there's proof he got away. Even the United States government has proof and documentation that he got away. But anyway, he took over in 1933. And, of course, the economy was collapsing in the 20s and the 30s over there. So Hitler got his people all riled up. And he told them the reason the economy was collapsing was the Jews, because they control everything. The same crap you hear today, he was saying that back then. The Jews control everything. They have all the money. They have all the power. They have this. They have that. So what they did is they passed the Nuremberg codes. Nuremberg is a major city over there, and they passed what they had, a law. And what that did was it took citizenship away from anybody that was Jewish. And they had it all mapped out on how you were Jewish. So if you had like one Jewish grandparent and one Jewish parent, you were only like a half a Jew. So at the beginning, you were okay with that. But then later on, it's like, no, that was too much Jew in your bloodline. But that's what they did. They figured it all out. And it's like, when you look at it, it's disgusting. It's horrible. But the rest of the world knew about it. They didn't care. Oh, no big deal. It's not our country. Don't worry about it. I mean, this is how bad it was. The things Hitler did you know he was Time Magazine's Man of the Year? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Stalin was up there. He killed millions of his own people. He made it on the cover of the magazine twice. What's that tell you about Time Warner people? Bunch of Nazi lovers. Anyway, Hitler went around and they started taking citizenship away. And the laws in Germany were changed to where you couldn't own property unless you were a citizen. Even though you've been there for generations and you've owned all this land and you've done everything and own a business and a bar and all kinds of other things, couldn't do it anymore because you're a Jew. And, you know, so the state took over. The country took over it. So they were walking around taking everything that wasn't theirs. Now, Hitler's brother, he rented a beer garden, a bar basically, and the owner was Jewish, and he wanted to buy it from him. The owner's like, no, you know, he makes money renting it. It was more profitable to them. After the Nuremberg Code, Hitler's brother took over control of that bar, and that Jewish guy was never seen again. This was in the early 30s, 33 to 45. Those were the years Hitler controlled and the Nazis controlled Germany. Now, Hitler, he started doing all this stuff. Now, there were a lot of laws. You couldn't own property. You couldn't vote unless you were a German citizen. So if you were in the Nuremberg Code, Jews were in that code, you couldn't vote. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't buy property. You couldn't, I mean, there were so many rules. They lost everything. You couldn't own a gun. They lost everything. They had no citizenship. They had no rights, nothing. They were basically out there. And that was the beginning, and that's what they were trying to do. And then Hitler came up with this idea, and his people came up in 1933. They made Dachau. It was the first concentration camp. They didn't call it that. They called it just, Kompensei. It's a German word. And basically, they put political prisoners in there. That's what they started doing at Dachau. And that was 1933. That was in the beginning. And political prisoners were anybody opposed to Nazis, anybody that was a communist, anybody that didn't agree with them. Most people started agreeing with them because they'd I don't want to be in prison and I don't want to die, because they were killing people. Now, in the beginning, Dachau, they just put them in there. And, then they started realizing it was like the model for what was to come. So then they started putting more people in there, and they started rounding up the Jews. What they started doing in a lot of countries, and even countries where Germany hadn't even invaded yet, a lot of these countries over there were against the Jews too in Europe, and like Poland and many others. And in the beginning they were. So don't let them fool you where they say, oh, we were okay until the Nazis came. No. Germany didn't invade Poland until 1939. Before that, they were putting people in the ghetto, the Warsaw Ghetto. And they put only Jews in there. You had to show paperwork to go into the city to work and then go back to the ghetto at night. Now, this ghetto was horrific. They had chain link fences up with razor wire on it, guards there. It was horrible. And you had no citizenship. And that was Poland. And that was before the Nazis took over. So what they did is the SS managed Dachau, and they were looking at it as a model of what's to come. It's like, okay, look what we're doing here. Let's do this again here. Let's do this. So they started building more camps. And what they would do is they would take the Jewish people and they say, okay, like in the ghettos, they had ghettos in all the big cities, Berlin, Warsaw, all over the place, all over Europe. And they started building these camps, and they told the Jews, hey, man, what we're going to do is, we know you don't have anything because we took all that, but that's your fault for being a Jew, and you have no citizenship, no rights. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a new home. And they lined them up. They said, pack your bags because you're leaving. You have no choice. But you're getting a new home, everybody. They didn't know what was going on. But it's like get on the train or die. Those that didn't get on the train were forced to dig long ditches and take a bullet in the back of their head. And then the guy behind them had to bury him. And if he still didn't want to go on the trains, he ended up digging his own grave and so forth. And that happened a lot. You dug your own grave because they didn't care. They didn't care about the Jews. They hated the Judens. They didn't care. Germany's changed a lot since then. The rest of the world hasn't. But anyway, they started making all these camps. People didn't know what they were getting into. They thought, okay, they're giving us homes. All right, they're shipping us out of town. We're getting a home. They didn't know they were going to a death camp or a concentration camp, a work camp. Call it what you want. It was still horrific. It's a prison. And these people would get off the trains, and they were putting them in boxcars. They were stacked in boxcars. They got a little pot, that's where you pooped and peed, and you had to do it in front of everybody else. And there were people on the way that kind of figured out what was going on, and some of them would open up the cars and jump out looking for freedom. Some of them would get shot and killed as they did it because there were guards on all the cars. Some of those people would fall to their deaths, and they said they'd rather die than where they were going. They kind of figured it out. And this was in the very beginning. They're like, this ain't right. So then they got out of the boxcars, and they realized we were lied to. And they lined you up. And then after this happened longer, rumors would get out to people after a few years, and they're like, hey, these camps are this, that, and the other. And then people would line up. They knew what was going on when they got on those boxcars. They knew they were gone and they weren't coming back. Those were work camps. That's what they called them in the beginning. Many of them were death camps. Some of them you would get off, they'd march you in, you'd walk in there, and they'd make you take a shower, and that was it. You were gone. Then they'd take your body out and burn it. There were about 15,000 camps throughout Europe. Poland had the most. The Soviet Union had a lot because a lot of the Soviet Union was controlled by other countries like Romania and stuff. Soviet Union didn't have as much as it did now. Whereas a lot of it had fallen, but that's why Stalin was involved in the war. But not just 15,000 camps, but they had a lot of ghettos everywhere still. Like I said, Poland had the most. Germany had quite a few also. Latvia had some. The Germans would take the people from Germany, go up the Baltic Sea, and drop them off in Latvia, Riga ghetto. And it's a very sad situation. It's a very horrific thing when you think about it, because these were all innocent people that did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. Hitler blamed the Jews, and many people did, for the loss of World War I. It was their fault that the Nazis, well, weren't Nazis then, sorry, but it's their fault Germany lost the war of World War I. No, it wasn't. The Jews had nothing to do with any of them. Had nothing to do with that. They just wanted them gone because they were Jews. Plain and simple, people. They wanted them gone because they were Jews. They would round them up. They would cook them alive in ovens. They would use Zyklon B, was an insecticide. They would use that on them. They realized if you put enough of it, it could kill a human. Basically, they would shower and they would gas you with it. The showers would burn you with the chemicals. They killed people alive. When people got off, they got off those boxcars, and it's hard for me to talk about this because I'll get there in a few minutes. But when they got off those boxcars, they lined them up. You go over here, you go to the left, you go to the right. We're talking girls, men, little kids. We're talking little kids, grown women, everybody. And they lined you up right away. And you either were lined up to the right where you marched into the camp and you were going to work, or you went to the left and they killed you. And it was horrific. Could you imagine doing that now? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine your people going through this crap for no reason other than being a Jew? At the time this started, the Jewish population, not just in Germany, but in all of Europe, was about 9 million people. So when the Shoah, the Holocaust, was all said and done, about 2 out of every 3 Jews were killed. A little over 6 million were killed. And the reason we know that is because Germany, the Nazis, kept some pretty darn good records about everything. They did a great job of keeping things. They were very, very good at keeping records. They did a great job of keeping track of everything, covering their expenses. They had names, they had pictures, they had everybody's, where they were from, what they were there for, and you'd see it always something to do politics. It wasn't like, hey, he's a Jew, let's bring him in here. They made it look good. Matter of fact, the Red Cross, don't get me started on the Red Cross. But anyway, I'm not a fan. I got a lot of reasons why. I'll tell you someday. The Red Cross Denmark was one of the countries that actually saved a lot of Jews. But some were taken away and they were put in these camps. And so the Red Cross got involved. They went in there and they saw this camp. But the Nazis had made it look nice. They planted grass. They did this. They took most of the people, about 7,500 people, if not a little more, moved the ones that were in rough shape, moved them to Auschwitz. And the only ones that were there were happy, clean ones that are in good shape that they just taken in. Because they starved these people. They starved them. They depraved them. Ugh. This is horrible to think about. But anyway, the Red Cross came in. It's like, oh, yeah, it's just a work camp. Not a big deal. Yeah, keep going, Hitler. You're okay. Yeah. The Red Cross has said before, oh, we regret this, that, and the other. Oh, screw you, Red Cross. You didn't care. You didn't care, and I don't care about you. You've been around since 1881. What have you done? You just kind of try to look good out there and get some money. I don't even want to hear it. I don't even want to talk about them. But anyway, that's what happened. Out of these 15,000 camps, many of them, like I said, you got off the train, you were dead. They killed you. They were death camps. The rest of them, they had you sewing. They had you cooking. Not for the people, but for the Nazis. They had people playing in the band. They had them playing Nazi music for the Nazis. They weren't playing entertainment for the prisoners. You've seen pictures. Those pictures are not AI. They are real. The only ones you'll see that are AI are the fake pictures of a fat Jewish soldier or prisoner. You won't see the real truth when it comes to AI. You see those guys that look like they hadn't eaten in a year, that are like, their stomachs are like horribly, it's just horrible to look at. Think about it. They've lost weight. They look like they're tree limbs, like little sticks for arms. Those are real pictures. Auschwitz was liberated this day. Now, the death march started before that, and that's when they knew that they were falling. The Soviet Union was coming in. So what they did was they went out there and they tried to get rid of as many as they could, and they left all the ones that were really sick. They left the really sick ones behind. They took the other ones and marched them. This was a few weeks before Auschwitz was liberated by the Soviet Union. They knew what they were doing. They tried to hide everything. They tried to make it look good. Like I said, a lot of leaders around the world knew what was going on, but they never once tried to shut down the train lines. They never once tried to go in and free the camps. You had the inmates, the prisoners, that would see American planes fly over a death camp, and they're looking up. It's like, and they said after they were freed, thank goodness, they would say things like, I wish they would have just bombed us for what we were going through. Watching these people die, we'd been better off dying at their hands, because at least they would have took a few Nazis with them. But it didn't work that way. It didn't work that way at all. And it was sad. And I'm glad the Soviet Union liberated a lot of the camps. And the things they saw were just, they couldn't even imagine it. They walked in, guns up, thinking, oh, what's going on here? And it's like, wait a minute. What the heck? How are these people even alive, man? So it's a solemn day, but at the same time, it's a beautiful day. Now in Israel, at 10 a.m., sirens go off, and they'll stop their cars on the freeways, the highways. The people will stop doing what they're doing, and for 2 minutes they pray, and they pay solemn occasion for this. They'll pay homage for it. It's a beautiful moment. And the funny thing is, everybody does it. The Muslims, the Hindus, the Christians, the atheists, they all do it because they know that it was horrific and that it never should have happened. And people will say, well, that's not true. The Muslims don't care. Yeah, they do. Did you know if you bomb Israel, you got a 1 in 5 chance of hitting a Muslim? Oh, yeah. Muslims live there, and they're happy, and they're free, and they got rights just like everybody else. Hindus, atheists, Christians, Latter-day Saints, they're over there. All kinds of people are over there. Different religions, different cultures. It's not a racist country. I think we can learn a lot from that. Now you look at the United States and the world right now, and I look at it, see, when I see the Holocaust, the Shoah, I think of it, and it's heartbreaking to me. It breaks my heart too much to think about. And I always say never again, never forget. And I'll tell you what, we don't forgive either. It's hard to forgive this. Germany's learned their lesson. Germany's turned themselves around. They've made a lot of rules, a lot of laws. They're not proud of it, but they're like, hey, this is what happened. We didn't do it, and we're not going to let it happen again. And I respect Germany for that. Kudos, my friends. I love you guys for doing that. They've made laws. You put your hand in the air, you're going to prison. You say hi Hitler, you're going to prison. They don't play, man. They're not playing. Over here you do it, you get an award. You put it on Facebook over there, they're kicking down your door. They're like, what did you do that for? Well, that's not right. I have free speech. No, you broke a law that we have. The law says you can't do that. You broke the law, buddy. It's just like, running a red light, you broke the law. Get in a cop's face and touch him and stuff. Hey, you broke the law. You're not allowed to do that, man. There's laws in place for a reason. They're not all good laws. Might not agree with them. But you know what? We still have to follow them. So, you don't mess around. You're not going to get hurt. And Germany's done a good job of changing things. Other countries over there try to deny it and say, like Poland says, it wasn't us. It was the Nazis. It was the Germans. We had no part of it till they came over. No, Poland, we're not buying that. We're not stupid, okay? A lot of people are, but we're not. Look at what's going on in the world today. Israel was attacked October 7th. Israel has had more pogroms, which are attacks, and more anything against the Jews throughout history. More pogroms, more attacks on Jews all over, not just in Israel, all over, all throughout time. It's documented. History's great when you know what's going on and when you document things and remember things. Israel's done a good job of keeping track. A lot of people have kept track of everything, even in their own countries. And they're like, wow, man, the Jews were attacked again today. They write it down. And nobody really can tell you why they were attacked. They just are, for no freaking good reason. And it's been that way for thousands of years. And you would think after the Shoah, after the Holocaust, you would think Germany learned. You would think people would learn. And that this would never happen again. That you would not hate an ethnic group for no reason. October 7th, 2023, Israel got attacked. It would have been the equivalency of like 29 11s here in America. After 9/11, America went to war. Everybody loved it. Israel attacked the people that tried to kill him and did kill him. They just now got the last hostage released. He's passed away, of course, and they got his body back. Baruch Hashem. But, I'm glad. I'm glad they're finally all back, but at what cost? It never should have happened. And what do? People still bash the Jews. They tell lies. A false report came out years ago about the Red Cross saying that there was only like 280,000 people that died in the Holocaust. Maybe they did come out with that report. Who knows if that's true or not? We can't tell for sure. But there are people that believe that. They believe everything they see on the internet. And you know what? Not everybody can post to Facebook a lie. No, everything you post on Facebook is true. Everything on Instagram is true. Why? If you have a website, they just don't give those to anybody that has $10 a month now, right? But there's people out there still spreading the lies, still spreading the hate. And since October 7th, I have never, ever seen so much anti-Semitism, anti-Jewishness in my lifetime. I thought I would never see this. I never thought this would happen. Never. I thought we all learned from the Holocaust and the Shoah. I thought we all learned from the Shoah. Thought we all learned from that. Thought we all learned to be better people and not hate people. But I've never seen it this bad. Jews getting attacked in the streets in America, all over the world, but in America every single day. There's synagogues being burnt down. People look the other way. No big deal. It's not my church. Just like back in the day when they were rounding the Jews up. They're like, they're not coming after me. I don't care. Yeah, well, what happens when they're done with the Jews, right? And that's how it is today. They're like, oh, well, I'm not worried about it. I'm not Jewish. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good way to act. If they were attacking Italians, I'd be sticking up for them. When they go after black people with their racism, I've always been there. And you know who else was there during the Civil Rights Movement? Funding them, sticking up for them, and dying for them? The Jews. Jews have always put their butts on the line for other people, but not many people put their butts on the line or anything for the Jews. It's funny. And I'm seeing more and more hatred and racism on a daily basis. Synagogues, like I said, are getting burned down. They're getting attacked. Jewish businesses, it's like Kristallnacht. They're breaking the glasses. They're stealing everything. They're beating up Jews on the street. Well, how do you know you're Jewish? Oh, look at the Hasidics. You know what a Hasidic Jew is. Somebody's wearing a kippah, wearing a yarmulke. You know they're Jewish. So what do? They go after them. You got people going to different places, watching people get off in an airport, coming in from Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, and what do? They're waiting for them because they know Jews are on that plane, and they stand there and they attack them verbally and physically. Nobody sticks up for them. People don't care. Where's the support? We talk about being a good mankind, good human race, loving one another. You got Christians out there. Aren't you supposed to love your brother? Didn't your Jesus say love your brother as yourself? But you don't do that, do you? And don't forget, your Jesus was freaking Jewish, and he followed all the laws. All 613 laws of Torah, he followed them. That's even in the Christian Bible. He celebrated the Feast of Dedication, which is Hanukkah. But I don't see you guys doing anything. I don't see anybody. I do see some, but I don't see a lot of Christians sticking up for the Jews. Shoot, most Christians, they go to church once a week, give a little money, and they think, oh, I'm okay. But then they go and lead a horrible life. And if I look at them, it's like, I don't want to be a part of that religion. Why would I want to be a part of that? You're cussing, you're screaming, the nasty laws you break and things like that. Some of the things you do, you gossip, you backstab, you breaking all the Christian laws, all the Jewish laws. The Jewish laws, your Christian laws were set by the Jews. Most of your Christian laws are based on Judaism, but you don't want to follow that. And you don't want to respect the Jews. And you don't want to help them. You don't care if they get killed. But let me tell you this. If the Jews get killed, who's somebody going to come after next? They got to have an enemy. That's just the way it is. Most people got to hate somebody. So who's next? They're going to go after you. But I'll tell you right now, the Jews ain't going nowhere. They never have gone anywhere. They never will. Here's an interesting fact. Did you know there are less Jews in the world right now than there were before the Holocaust? There's about 15 million Jews in the world, people that have Jewish bloodline. They might not all identify as Jewish, but there are 15 million people in the world that have a Jewish bloodline. Some of them might be bad people like George Nazi Soros, but there's a lot of beautiful people out there too. And they're proud of what they are. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of what you are. It's when you hurt others for being proud of what you are, like the Nazis did. That's where it gets wrong. But there's less people now, less Jewish people in the world now than there were before the Holocaust. There were about 16 million people in the world, most of them living in Europe at that time. Like I said, 2 out of 3 Jews in Europe were killed for no reason other than being Jewish. Right now, there's a major attack in the world, and especially in the United States, which is supposed to be so open-minded and progressive. They're attacking Jews. Why? Why? I got all these people that are far left talking smack, but they don't care about the Jews. They make up excuses. They talk smack about them. They don't stick up for them. Why? You're supposed to care about others, aren't you? No, because people only care about themselves anymore. They don't care about others like they're supposed to. And it's funny because the group of people that reaches out and cares the most is still the Jews. Let me tell you, that's how it goes, my friends. Look, I know what it's like to lose people in the Shoah. All right? I know what that's like. I don't want to talk about it. So I know what I'm talking about, though. I've experienced it. My family has. A lot of my friends have. We don't like it. We don't like hatred. We're taught tikkun olam. That's a law. That's a law that we're taught. And that's to heal the world with goodness and kindness and charity. That's what a Jewish law is. That's what we're supposed to do. And it's not just a Jewish thing. Everybody should do it. We're supposed to make the world a better place by leading as a good example. You find money on the ground, you pick it up. You donate it. You give it to charity. You give it to the homeless man. You see garbage, you pick it up. Well, we don't anymore because it's usually contaminated with toxic chemicals. Horrible. But anyway, you get the point. We try to heal the world. The Jewish laws, if you know them, you know that Jews are some of the most charitable people on the planet. And the Jews give. We're not takers. We're givers. And we're always going to give. And we're always going to help others. So I'm asking you guys out there, if you care about anybody, if you care about your brothers, your sisters, help the Jews. Stick up for them. Support them. Honor them. Remember the things that happened to them and learn from it. Otherwise, it's going to be like 1984. 1984 was a good book. I always thought it was fiction, but apparently some people picked it up and used it as a guidebook and a handbook for what we're going through now. And I don't like that. And I'm not going to play that. And neither will millions and millions of other people in this world. So let's all get along and get together. Let's pray for those and honor those that died needlessly in the Holocaust. I appreciate you listening. Peace and love to y'all. Let's heal the world together. We're all in this together. We got to love one another, my sisters and brothers. Peace.